Hi guys, welcome to another episode of African Travel Now with Trevor. I am at one of the fancy restaurants in Bulawayo. You guys need to come here and double date and do nice things for couples. Like also apparently it's the nice spot to pick up your woman. So come through, but also firstly sponsor the podcast, share the podcast with friends and family, subscribe, sponsor. The biggest word is sponsor, so sponsor the podcast. Today I am joined by Carl Joshua Ncube, comedian, celebrity chef, blah 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 blah. I'll ask him to introduce himself and what he does.
Hey, what's up? Thank you for coming and thank you for fancying our fancy. So I'm Carl Joshua Ncube, currently business development manager at Kankasa restaurant in Bulawayo. My background is comedy and food entertainment, but basically anything creative. I'm back in my hometown in Bulawayo trying to see how to create a little tourist corner from where we are, which is at 11th and George Sedondika. So we want to create a buzz. The reason why we're running a Brazilian steakhouse is because Brazil and Bulawayo are exactly the same. The Brazilians love their soccer. They cook meat on an open fire. They're just a colorful culture. They're very strong within their roots. They have beautiful women. And that just sounds like Bulawayo to me. And they enjoy their drink. So that's just basically me in a nutshell and the phase that I'm currently in, or season that I'm in at the moment.
And how has COVID changed the way that you work?
It's certainly made us become, from my perspective, a lot more mindful of a lot of things. Mindful of the impact that I and my businesses and the people that I work with, their impact on the environment. It just took a moment to just step back and say, why haven't I been growing my own food? Why have I been going to the supermarkets and getting stuff that's packaged in plastic? Where does this plastic go? There's a lot of things in terms of service delivery that changed, that made you aware of how much junk we were producing. It also kind of refined the processes of what we did. Like just my wife is a hotelier, been doing restaurants for some time now, and bringing people into our space in the rural, because we moved to the rural area, so bringing people into our space, small numbers of people, having to be mindful of sanitation and those kind of issues, food preparation, social distancing. That has literally really changed our business model. It hasn't stopped the business, but it's shifted definitely the business model and how we think about things. So for me, I've been kind of happy that this pandemic has happened, because moving forward, I'm a lot more mindful. As a public personality, I was just always around people, always just mingling and interacting in ways that were not even healthy anyway. So it's shifted that thought process, and in turn, it's just shifted our business.
Yeah, and for businesses, for tourism businesses in Bulawayo, and like you building this tourism corner in the city, what opportunities do you see in terms of like culinary tourism, but also in terms of like collaborating and building destination Bulawayo as somewhere that people would want to come and check out and visit? Yeah,
so largely experiences in tourism, particularly in Zimbabwe, were very insular. They were very venue specific. Like you go to a gallery, you're inside something, you're in a plane, and what I love about COVID is it's forcing us to think outside. So the restaurant is the box, but we are now thinking outside the restaurant. We're talking about eating outside, because this is something that is very natural to us. We don't go indoors to eat. This was not our thing. We used to sit outside by a fire. There's a lot of sanitation that happens in that process. The smoke, the fire, the fresh air. These things have not been used enough, We have not explored cooking in matopos that often, Just that tradition of cooking on a rock outside on top of this, huge structure, on the top of the world, that kind of thing. We've now just traded that for the insular thing of the takeaway, of the eating indoors, of the eating in the restaurant, of eating in the office, of eating in the rooms. We no longer eat outside. We don't put a table outside and bring people to their weddings are now inside tents. They're not outdoors. And so there's a great opportunity to get back to our roots. I think that's the main thing. It's like, how quickly are we going to realize that so that we get to that particular space?
And what is the one thing that COVID has taught you?
Oh, wow. COVID has just taught me, I think, to think different. You know, it's a brick wall. It's really been a brick wall for everything. So your first thought process is to complain about COVID, but your second thought process should really be to think about how do we do this differently. This is our new, I hate to use the word new normal, but that's what COVID has taught me. It's not business as usual. Everything has changed, but we've had events that have changed us that much anyway, for the longest time, you know.
And I think that my other question is for people that are interested to coming and having a meal here, why should they come?
Okay, so I think people should come for an education. They should come for an education from the simple premise that in the world, especially around the world, we are very different, but we're actually also very similar. And it's that humanity that we want to teach them. The humanity of the difference between what happens in Rio de Janeiro, for example, and what happens in Bulawayo. And you will see that we're not very different, you know. It's quite actually amazing. Like I like to cook in Hlogo, like the pork head, and I put lots of beans in it, and lots of herbs and spices, and I cook it down, and it breaks apart in there, and they just eat it as the one meal, right? In a lot of ways, people would call that maybe mtakura, or I can't remember what we would call it in Isindebele, but you know that when we mix samp and beans and all of those things.
No, it's not good.
Yeah, but we now mixing it with like in Hlogo and cooking it down, and then you go to Brazil and you hear there's a feijoada, which is a similar thing, or that you hear that they've got a drink that's called cachaça, and Tina, we've got cachaça. So we're not very different. Yeah. We're not very different from a football perspective. Most of their footballers play on their dusty streets, barefoot, and then they become $100 million, for superstars around the world. And in Bulawayo, we have produced probably the best talent from a football perspective. If we look per player, we have produced in Bulawayo the best players. Highlanders itself, has produced the best players. You won't have a national team without a Highlanders player. And so, for me, when you come here, that's the very heritage we want to show. We want to show that food culture moves. It's not static. Nothing is static. The planet we're on is spinning and rotating and is doing things. So we're constantly on the move. Bulawayo is not in the same place. And that's what I want people to know. You can come here today, but physically, our place in the universe changes every day you're here. So everything is different. And so we want to celebrate that by showing you how we can enjoy a cuisine that looks like it's foreign, but ingest it and feel just how local it actually is.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this yesterday. Can you just share maybe a bit about Ekaya, the platform, how people can book, know more, and support?
Yeah, so Ekaya falls into a weird place because we're a rural development think tank. So think of this as an advertising agency situated in the rural areas, simply there to expose assets that can be, that you can grow, that you can scale, and also assets that can also preserve sort of culture. There's something that we were having a discussion earlier where you intimated that you're looking at the rural space and also how people can commercially sort of get land and so on to develop. Whereas the study we're doing is that there is a very big importance in land in rural being acquired from a communal perspective and not commercial. Reason why I say this: David Livingstone came to a communal place. He He lived with the people. They took him as one of his own. They then shared with him the gift of the Victoria Falls. He then goes to explain the potential and beauty of this place from a tourism perspective to the Queen, therefore naming it Victoria Falls. Therefore they came commercially, and now the locals can't get access. So it's very important for me to strike a balance between what we call commercial versus what is communal. And can communal operate in the same strength even better than commercializing something, where something is owned by a community and the rules of the community apply the same way that corporate law applies. Communal law must also be looked at in the same way. So when you establish a company, you have to have a constitution, you have to have the board of directors, all the structures. The communal must have also the same structures in such a way that we can choose in an area to say, this is commercial, this is communal. And if you're a company operating in a communal space, these are the communal regulations that apply to your business being there, which means you don't own the land, which means you're not given title, which means you are by the approval of the people, and you are by the approval of processes that are traditional. But those things can be made to look corporate as well. And so that's what our job is to analyze we often say this in our company, that there is a cost and there's repercussions and implications to good ideas. So good ideas can change people completely, but they can also change the lifestyle of people. There's some things we don't change in our culture simply because it erodes something, a fabric of us. It might be, it's the reason why sometimes we might keep the beards we keep, because while it may not be appropriate for us to have them anymore, but there's something that we feel might erode us if we got rid of it, And so those are the kind of things that we're talking about. A typical example, besides the beards, because I might be seen as sexist, is something as simple as spectacles. It doesn't matter what advancements they make in eye care. They can give us contact lenses, but there's just nothing more beautiful than wearing specs and choosing frames and looking a different way. It's become part and parcel of who we are. So it doesn't matter what you do, you're never going to change people wearing specs. They're just going to wear specs because, yeah.
And laser is very expensive. So.
Right. At the moment, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So my last question would be, like, for people that, how can people support the restaurant here, social media, websites,
right.
etc.
Okay, so firstly, from an Ekai perspective, we have an acronym BIDS, right? So you can build an Ikaya, which is to follow what we're talking about, the principles of rural architecture, trying to mimic your area. We are not looking at people bringing the city into the rural area. So I want you to build in a sustainable way, and also in a preservative way, preserving our culture, because every house that's built, if you look along the main roads, the houses on either side of the roads are representing our country. They don't realize, but they're actually representing. Because imagine foreigners came and all they saw were high rises. It changes how they look at Africa. There's the investing. We definitely do. We are about to start a round of investment for our actual app, which is curating rural experiences and onboarding people with rural homesteads and training them in the franchise of how to look after guests. We're looking at donations, so we have a number of initiatives again where we look at people wanting to donate to certain causes. And when we say causes, we're talking about sustainable projects, like we identify, say, a restaurant at a growth point, and we say this is how it can be scaled into a franchise, and then invite people to be able to scale that particular business, or they can stay. So what we're trying to get them to do is to stay in rural, is to, whether it's your rural areas or someone else's rural areas, but to look at that as a form of tourism. Don't travel just because someone has died. I think there's better reasons to travel to the rural areas than when there's death, and I think we need to shift that. Although it sounds bad, but we are using COVID to try and to stamp that across, because people have experienced a lot of death, and But in that, what we're saying is that your stay there doesn't have to be uncomfortable as well. You don't. It's not a thing to say because you've experienced loss. The best way to be able to deal with it a lot better is to make yourself more comfortable within the rural space. So we have sort of recommendations in terms of glamping and how you can sort of make that experience better for you. What kind of equipment you should be investing in, just to make that experience for yourself better, so you can stay a month later, come back for a memorial. These are the kind of things that Zimbabweans are traveling to the rural areas for. Take your friends to a memorial so that they can experience a bit of African culture. Death is not a bad thing, it's a celebration of life. And so we want people to understand that. So how can they reach us? I think the issue is just to follow the hashtags with Ikaya. We do have a page on Facebook, which is Ikaya. We have a YouTube channel, which is Ikaya, Tourism Ikaya actually. Tourism spelled Tourizim. So again, we're trying to put the word Zimbabwe back into tourism to encourage that. It's our word now. So we not ours as a company, but I'm saying ours as a country, that we can actually, when we're talking tourism, we spell it that way, so that people are constantly aware that our country is a place worth traveling to.
Yeah, and so guys, it's Ekaya without the H.
Yes. Oh, so to explain that, so I get a lot of backlash on this. We did not put the H in Ekaya because language, especially in Ndebele or Shona, is a construct in which I don't believe in, because it was written in English. So our language is an approximation of sounds created by another person. So when we debate over how something is spelled correctly or incorrectly, it's already incorrect to start off with. To say that the letter Q, that's the sound, because that's the sound, but that's not the spelling. The spelling was created by someone who was approximating. I'll give an example of why we. So our logo features an E facing the wrong way, and then there's a K and there's no H. What it was basically doing was to say that we need to reshift our language on our culture. And, for us, there's certain things in our language in itself that are not explained. And so I want the opportunity to always sit and have this discussion with someone. So let's have a rethink. Think about brand names around the world. Why should I be criticized for taking an H out of a letter when there's companies like Google and Facebook or Meta or whatever it is that either abbreviate, approximate, or shorten, or Tumblr, those kind of things. Like, from a tech company perspective, we are literally just saying that we're taking a little bit of culture out and we're putting a little bit of tech back in, and that it's a new thing. Ekaya does not mean place of origin for us. It actually means a journey for us. It means a change for us. It means a connection for us. It doesn't mean a house. It doesn't mean a rural area. It doesn't mean tradition. It actually means a progression of a nation. And so we needed to change the word itself so that it can be defined and can mean something completely different, but coming from an origin of something that is familiar to us.
And last question.
Yes.
For tourism businesses that are interested in collaborating with you, what opportunities you did mention around franchising, etc. But what are quick, easy collaborations that guys can strike you up and say I'm interested in working?
So from a perspective, we are looking at how can restaurants start to infuse local into their dishes, because what it does is it changes even how you order. Because a lot of these foreign dishes that we're putting onto our menus, we are being strangled by the supply chain because we cannot fulfill the orders. We want people to introduce more local, but in a not in a poor way, in a way that really can enhance the business and increase your potential. We want people to come and literally ask us how they can supersize their businesses using local sustainable methods. What we call a path to green, where we basically are giving you a path of how your business can be more sustainable, more mindful. Because we are in this great opportunity in Zimbabwe, resources are plenty for us to go green. You know, sunlight is there in abundance. We've got wind energy. We've got hydro. There's so many things that don't involve us looking into other, like importing liquid petroleum gas, for example, whereas we can really harness the power of biogas. I mean, we've set up so many pit latrines and so many farmers that are out there that I just wonder why we're not actually harnessing and taking up all of this energy. You know, toilets are they're used, Blair toilets, and then they're just destroyed. And yet all of this time, there's just been no harvesting of biogas for heating, for any purposes, for rearing chickens, and there's so many different things we can do. So we really want to collaborate in spaces. We really want to share ideas. We really want to license out IP. We just want people to know that we're there doing the thinking for you. You just need to come to us, and then we can give you turnkey solutions that can supercharge any business within the context of tourism and any lateral sort of integrations that apply to it. We're just there looking at what's the technology here, who's doing what, and just connecting the right people. And somewhere in there creating opportunities for us to make money.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, subscribe, follow, share the podcast with family, friends, sponsor as well, the link in bio, and connect with Carl. Come through George Silundiga and 11th Avenue in Bulawayo. Really dope sport again. For the girlies, you'll find men here. For the girlies, there are boys here. For the boys, there are boys here. For the girls, there are girls here. Whatever your preference. But importantly, come and support black businesses. Come and support local businesses. Come and explore what is possible in Bulawayo and literally have a good time. Till the next episode. Bye.